Hey guys, what's growing? It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. We have a single day, which is today, where the sun is trying to peek out a little bit. We're in between storms. We're going to get a really big one tomorrow. So I am going to jump on that and do some weeding in the garden with my two favorite tools. Okay, so gonna do the weeding in the garden. I will show you all about those tools in just a minute, but first I need to go water the seedlings that we planted the other day, the seeds that we planted the other day in the greenhouse, and I need to feed the worms. So let's go take care of that first. All of the soil blocks right here that we made the other day. Obviously nothing's germinated yet because it's only been 2 days, but they do need water. So the way I water in these trays is I try to keep it off to the side so that not too much of the soil washes out of the blocks. I fill the tray with water and then let it soak up, and then I will pour off the water that doesn't get soaked up after a couple of minutes. You don't want to leave soil blocks sitting in water. They will disintegrate, but also, more importantly, it will form mold on the soil blocks, and sometimes that happens anyway, but we really would like to avoid that as much as possible. The fan's kicking on in here. I gotta tell you, because I think I've said this before, since it's been so moist in here, it smells amazing. It smells like freshly cut cedar in here. All right, so just doing this last bit. These guys are on seedling heat mats. As you can see, the brand is VivoSun. You can get these guys on Amazon. These are the, sorry, 10 by 20 ones. You can get them with or without thermostats. This is the thermostat that it comes with. So then what happens is you get this probe that you can put in your soil, and it will tell you what the temperature of the soil is. I'm not really bothering doing that, just because I know that the temperature in the greenhouse is fine. But you could put the probe in, measure the temperature up there, and then you can raise and lower it and set it to what you want this heat mat to be. So let's say your seeds need to germinate at 70 degrees. You can set the thermostat at 70 degrees, use the soil probe, and then it will keep the soil at 70 degrees. So it will raise the mat temperature however it needs to be in order to keep that soil at 70 degrees. So as you can see, those soil blocks soaked up all of the water. So they were pretty thirsty. I'm not going to add more because the tops of them are moist. So if you find that your soil blocks are dry on the top, you'll need to add more water. You'll get used to this system and you'll learn to just look to see how it is moisture-wise just by look, based on the soil that you use, but also you can touch them. And if they get totally dried and desiccated, these are really old, so I don't really care what happens to these. This is, right, so that's not even totally dry. It's been so humid in here. So these are really, really old. I just didn't do anything with them and I let them go. But you can see when they look dried out, they're lighter in color. All right, so now I need to feed the wormies. I hope they're okay in here. I mean, I have been negligent. That's the thing about worms. They're not like regular livestock. You don't have to check on them every day. Oh, there's plenty of wormies. There's some right there. Okay. And I don't think I need to add any. Oh, good. They're looking good in here. And also not completely out of food. I don't think I need to add any moisture because, like I said, it's been super humid in here. All right, so what I'm going to do is grab my trowel, and I try to do this carefully so that I don't cut anybody in half or anything like that. I'm just going to move this stuff aside so you can see they still have some food from the last time. Actually, I am going to add a little bit of moisture to this. It's not dry, but it's not as damp as it could be. And then I'm going to give them, they really like berries. I've got some strawberries here. I've got a banana peel. Cover that back up. You can just lay it on the surface, but it's better if you bury it for them because they really, they want to stay away from the light. And even though it's pretty dark in here with the lid on, they tend to go for the food better if you bury it. All right, put some lettuce down here. Normally I would chop that up more, but I'm lazy today, so that ain't happening. I'll move this aside and add a few more things here. And then, so this is the rest. I've got an apple core, a celery core, some grapes. So they're gonna get my food scraps. They're gonna have to start sharing with chickens once we get our chickens in the spring. So, I am gonna add some water, but the way I'm gonna do it, this is a cover. Sorry guys. It is made of coconut coir, shredded. Here dude, get back in. Whoa, don't fall out. There we go. Okay. So the idea behind it is that if you water it, then it slowly lets some water into the bin without like flooding your worms. It stays moist. You can also just use newspaper, layers of newspaper to do this, which is what I always used to do. But I really like this cover. I got it from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, which is actually where I get my worms as well. All right, so put these guys back to bed. It hasn't been too cold this winter yet. Well, I mean, we did get a lot of cold a couple weeks ago, but it's been pretty mild. So they're totally fine in there. There's more worms in this lower rack, but that is mostly done compost. So I'm trying to attract them to come up above so that I can then harvest that lower bin without getting too many wormies in the process. Okay, so now that chore is done, let's go back and I'll show you the 2 hoes that I'm going to use to cultivate today in the garden. And I need to sharpen one of them. Those chores are done. Now it's time to move on to the more fun work, in my opinion. I have 2 hoes that I'm going to use today to cultivate in the garden. This one is a stirrup hoe. You can get this pretty much anywhere. It's a push-pull hoe. This moves back and forth. You can see why it's called stirrup. And the cutting edges are here and here. And I use it not in the growing beds. I use it for like the pathways and stuff that, because it's a sturdier hoe. This is a thicker piece of metal. So I use it to clear out in, the gravel, clear weeds from the edging and all that kind of stuff in between the beds. So that's what I use for that. And then I also have, this is a collinear hoe. This was designed by Elliott Coleman. I got this one at Johnny's. There's only a few places that carry it. Well, I don't know, maybe more now, but when I got it, there was only a few places that carried it. This is, I got it from Johnny's. This is a 3 3/4 inch fixed blade. So it is soldered on there really well and it's sharp. This is a pull hoe. And the cool thing about this design is it's ergonomic. It's, you stand upright the whole time. There's no need to bend over as you're using this, which is really awesome for your back. That's one of the reasons people hate cultivating with hoes, is because they have to bend over and it hurts their back. So this is a great design by Elliott Coleman. It does need to be sharpened, however, because it's dull from my last couple of uses. So the cutting blade is here on this end and it is beveled. So I'm going to use the same sharpener that I use for my my hand tools on this. If I can get the lid off. Oh goodness. Okay. This is a little bit not trickier really to sharpen. It's the same idea, but because of the angle and how you have to brace it, it gets a little bit harder. But so I'm going to run the blade, the sharpener, across the blade on an angle, just like I did with my hand tools. If I can get closer for you to see. It's going to focus on my face, I think, unfortunately. So when you do that, you create a much sharper edge. And I sometimes will run this flat across the top to remove the burrs. So I'm going to go on and get this sharpened up, and then we'll head out to the garden and start cultivating. I'm going to wear gloves, which I normally wouldn't do to cultivate, but my collinear hoe, the handle needs to be sanded down. It's a little splintery because it dried out, so I'm going to wear gloves so I don't get splinters. But I'm going to start with this first bed, which doesn't have that much in the way of weeds inside the bed. Mostly it's in the pathways. So I'm going to just get started. So that was a pretty easy, quick job. I mean, I didn't really have that much to get out. There was hardly any weeds in the beds at all, which is fantastic. So I'm gonna cover back up the ones that I've weeded because we're gonna get a heavy deluge tomorrow. And then I'm going to sow some radish, some beets, and some carrot, and some peas. Because peas actually will grow now, and even if we get freezing temperatures, if I lose a few of them, it's not a big deal. So that's what I'm planning to do next. planned on sowing any seeds today, but it's such a nice, dry, partly cloudy day that I couldn't help myself. And these seeds will be totally fine. In fact, they want to be wet, especially the carrots. So I put in a couple rows, 3 rows of 2 different types of radish, and not like huge long rows, because these are succession sowing, right? So you just keep doing it. So I have lots of space left. And then I put in a short row of beets, early wonder beets. And then I put in 2 rows of Lincoln peas, short rows, 2 feet long. And if they start to germinate and stuff, then I can put my pea trellis here. I had planned on growing peas in this spot anyway, putting up the long trellis and just going crazy with it. Usually I grow them in the raised bed, so this will be the first time I'm growing them in ground, and I'm looking forward to that. So giving them more space, and because we love peas so much, it'll be nice to have so many. So this first succession, hopefully it'll come up, and then I'll do more, and I have multiple types of peas that I want to do this year. So I still have some bed space left. I'll show you. So from roughly here down to almost the end where there's a goji berry you can't really see, I have this space. So this is about 8 feet maybe of bed space, which is great. And over there where the marigolds were, that's about probably 5.5 feet of bed space. And then of course I'll have loads of bed space once all of the flowers are done, but that won't be for a while. The upper raised beds are still growing stuff, obviously, but you know, that's going to get changed out in very early spring for peas and some other stuff, probably more carrots and radishes and stuff like that. Lettuces and everything will go in the green stock, and I might try to do some early brassicas. I just don't have a lot of luck with brassicas here, partly temperature wise, partly it's a timing thing, and because of the sun. So they need enough sun, and this garden in the wintertime only gets about 6 hours, maybe 5.5 hours of sun because of our big redwood trees and because the sun's so low on the horizon. So that tends to impact how well the brassicas do, but I'm not giving up. I will find the magic formula and the right place in the garden at some point, and that will be where I tend to grow them. So I think that's going to be it for me today. Like I said, I hadn't planned on doing more than just cultivating, and I definitely need to do it out at the farm. I won't be doing that tomorrow because it'll be just tumultuous rain, but maybe on Tuesday through Friday next week we're going to get rain every day, but it'll be scattered showers, and so I can get out there and I can definitely work in the high tunnel, but maybe also elsewhere on the property. So looking forward to getting back to work. It's such a mess out there. I just can't wait to actually start cleaning up. I know it's only January, but cleaning up I can do anytime. In the winter is fine. Yeah, so also at the end of this month, I want to wait a little longer, but I'll give you guys another garden tour, January garden tour, because the hellebores are starting to come up, the narcissus are starting to come up, and I'll have some things to show you. I'm sure the snowdrops are starting to come up. I haven't gone out there to look, but we'll do a January garden tour. Things will still be a mess, but there'll be some pretty stuff to look at. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.